Hello, busy dads and busy people everywhere. Welcome to another episode of the Busy Dad Podcast. In today's episode, I sit down with Alex, a dear friend of mine and a deeply committed burpee practitioner. In the episode, Alex tells us the story of how, through early life experiences, he internalized a certain very damaging self conception. He came to think of himself as fundamentally weak, physically speaking, and as in some deep sense unreliable, incapable of stepping up when it really mattered. He talks about how, through his burpee training practice, he was able to reach inside of himself and excise that self conception and build a new one, and in the process earn something that is utterly priceless: self respect. It's a really inspiring story. Alex tells it better than I do. So, my friends, without further ado, I give you Alex.
Okay, so Alex, welcome back to the podcast, my man. It's excellent to see you.
Thank you
Uh,
so much.
a real pleasure. For those of you listening, if you're followers of the podcast, you'll know Alex from the very first episode of the series. And in fact, it's really just the wonderful conversations that I'm having with Alex that birthed the podcast itself. One day we were in a coaching session, and it just struck me that there was so much of value that Alex was saying that it might be worth just pressing the record button. And that was our first impromptu episode of the podcast. So without these conversations, Alex, this podcast might not exist. And it's a real pleasure to have you back. I'd love to give you an opportunity just briefly to share your burpee training story with people who don't yet know you. You have your own Burpees YouTube channel that some guys will know you from. You've been on the podcast. I've featured you on this channel once or twice before, and you're a very enthusiastic member of the Busy Dad training community. So I think a lot of people will have a sense of who you are. But for those people listening who don't, can you just give us a sense of your training story, how you came to burpees, where you're at in your practice? Give people a sense.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Max. It's so nice to be here. I'm really honored that I was the first guest ever on the Busy Dad podcast. I'm really looking forward to doing this one where things seem a little more structured and well put together. And I'm hoping that whatever we do, we can inspire some people out there, either who are already training to keep going, or maybe some people who have never done it before to give it a go. Um, my name's Alex. I'm from Cape Town. I'm currently a junior doctor working in Port Elizabeth in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. I have been training for a number of years now outside of burpees. For many years in my teens, I did weightlifting, as we all tend to dabble in at times. And then for some years before burpees, I was a climber, very heavily into climbing, and then came across the beauty of burpees one day and haven't really looked back since. And now it's my, I guess, only form of training, actually. I play golf as well, but in terms of pure physical exercise, burpees is what I do.
And we're going to talk about the kind of wealth that you've created in your life through burpee training and through the vibrant and healthy practice that you've created. Let's just start by giving people a sense of that practice, of where you're at. So let's talk about how long you've been training. Let's talk about where you started with your numbers, where you are now. Let's also talk about some of the supporting practices that you've built around your burpee training. For example, a little bit of nutrition.
Yes.
Just give people a sense of your orientation towards training, what you've built.
Yeah, so I think I just recently hit 2 years doing Busy Dad program. It was one of my best friends, my climbing buddy, who introduced me to you. He was sort of into the whole prison burpee thing and that sort of stuff, and your channel came up in that whole journey. And so we started doing it together, and I saw the value in it and the simplicity of it. And so it stuck. I did that for just under a year. And there were times in that where I wasn't as consistent as I should have been, and I didn't always hit my 80 minutes every week. And then you announced your intention to start coaching. And immediately I was excited by the idea and enthused. And then you actually reached out to me because I'd commented on the channel in the past and whatnot. And you said, I'm looking for committed people. I'd love to have you on board. And so I said, this is certainly a sign. And I signed up, and we've been together since then. I'm currently a level 3 practitioner in both the 6 counts and the seals. Early on in our time together, I reached level 4 briefly. And then we reviewed my form and realized that it wasn't quite where it needed to be. So we went to town working on that and spent many months trying to get it right. If I'm allowed to give myself some credit, I think I've come to the point where I've developed perfect or near perfect form. And have reached level 3 once again doing that. And I certainly believe that as I reach the higher numbers, there won't be any question as to whether I'm doing it right or not. So in terms of the training, that's sort of our journey together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've got some perfectionists in my number, and Alex, I think of Miles as well, who's hopefully going to be coming back to the podcast soon. But Alex is certainly one of them, and you know, you're such a perfectionist that you created a YouTube channel around your practice as a way of, I guess, holding yourself accountable, but also giving you an opportunity to review your reps, to put what you were doing out to the public. How long has that channel been going, and what's your experience been of having your own Burpees YouTube channel?
I don't know how long it's been, but I saw a day or two ago I've posted about 70 or 80 videos on there. As you say, it was to hold myself accountable, but and to keep strict check of that form. And I mean, my pedantry got almost absurd to the point where I was slowing the videos down to 0.25 times speed to make sure that I was holding the pause for sufficient time before moving into the press up. So it's been a great experience, but frustrating at times and probably a bit ridiculous. But it's also been extremely fulfilling. I've got 2 or 3 really committed, dedicated people who watch. Gary is one of them. I've made follow-alongs for them, and it's really fun to train with them and chat to them in the comments and all that sort of thing. And ultimately, I feel like I'm just promoting Busy Dad training and everything that you bring and stand for. And so to be able to support you in that way feels like a very small contribution to what I really think is something so valuable.
Oh, that's wonderful, Alex. And yeah, shout out to Gary. He's a great member of the community. And I remember in your journey, I mean, it was a demoralizing realization when you sent me that footage and we saw that you weren't quite hitting depth and you were rushing through the second count of the movement. And we stripped things back and started from scratch effectively. There was a period
after nearly a year of training.
Yeah. I mean, we hadn't been working together for a year, but you were deep in the game already, and you were wearing your brown T-shirt. You were so damn proud of yourself, and you had to really eat some humble pie, but you didn't just eat it; you wolfed it down. I mean, you just really embraced this process of re-educating your body. And what's been inspiring for me to see is that, there was a period, as I said, where it looked like we were just stuck at sort of 210, 220. And then I blinked and you're just giving me this beautifully executed 250 all of a sudden. And you were able to smash through some plateaus. Something I really try to communicate to people. I say that progress is non-linear, and you might know that intellectually, but when you're in the trenches and it's been 3 months and you've not been able to get past a certain number, it's really hard not to be demoralized. And then you can blink and all of a sudden the body has prepared itself, the spirit has prepared itself, and you're in a new landscape of training. And
as you've just experienced recently as well.
Yeah, absolutely. All of a sudden back into the 300s, making a home there again. And 3 months ago, I would have thought it's gone. But listen, we are having this conversation with a kind of specific purpose. It sounds to me that there was a kind of a point of inspiration in an episode we did a couple of weeks ago with Alex
Hmm.
Petkas, where we were talking about building a physique that is the kind of ground zero of your self-respect. And you said that listening to that kind of prompted some reflections, and you felt an impulse, a very generous impulse, to share some of your own story around self-respect. And I just want to kind of offer you the floor to share those stories with people listening, Alex.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that it hit home. There've been a number of instances in my life where I I didn't respect myself physically. Um, I think there are three particular stories that pop into mind, which I'll share very briefly. Um, they're quite vulnerable, but I think that it's worthwhile, and I think that it's a universal experience,
Mm.
one that many people will relate to. Um, the first being when I was 10 years old, I broke both my arms in the same year, not at the same time, but at the start of that year, I broke the right arm quite severely. It took about 6 months for that to heal. And then a week after getting the all clear from the doctor, I broke the other arm. Um, so that was I think quite a formative experience that I carry with me to this day. I sometimes have trouble doing little things with my hands, like in the case of being a doctor, like it took me quite a long time to get the hang of doing stitches. Um, and I do think that that is a downstream effect of using one arm essentially for the entirety of that year. And I never quite caught it back up. But the point I'm getting at is that I was a very small kid and very skinny. And my friends used to make such fun of me for that, even when we were 10 years old. They would call me weak. They would call me rickets because I'd broken my bones, and they said any strong person would have not broken their bones if they'd fallen like that. And I remember one day specifically sitting in my au pair's arms and just crying my eyes out because everyone was calling me weak and skinny and making fun of me for that. So that certainly stuck with me. Um, the second story is when I was 12 or 13 years old. My dad looked at me one day and said, son, you have actually got the perfect build to be a middle distance runner. So we are going to train and you're going to do middle distance running at school. And I said, that's amazing. And in those days, my primary intention was to make my dad happy and make him proud. And so we spent the whole December holiday training every day, sprints and long distance and whatever it took. And I got to the qualifying race at my school and I came second place, and I qualified for the inter-school competitions. So everything was going well. And I rock up to the inter-school competition and I'm nervous, and I completely bombed the race. I couldn't get any willpower going. I started falling further and further behind, and I did very poorly. I must have come close to last. And I remember my dad was obviously at the race, and I don't really know what I was expecting from him, but he sort of gave me a very sort of okay, whatever, and left. And that has stuck with me. That sort of feeling of physical inferiority and letting him down.
Mm.
That has stuck with me forever since then. I've never quite been able to get over that totally. And then I think the third experience was just as a teenager. I was still very skinny, struggled to put on weight, and now everyone's hitting the gym. It's kind of that age where, you want to build some muscle and impress some girls. And probably it was partly a genetic thing and partly just not being very consistent with the gym, as most people wouldn't be at that age, I'd suspect. I never really built any serious size And no matter how much food I ate, I couldn't gain any weight. And so I just always felt pretty crappy compared to everyone else. And so, through all these experiences, there's been a constant theme, I guess, of not, you mentioned self-respect, which I think is what we're getting at, of not respecting myself physically, feeling physically inferior, feeling like I couldn't carry myself over the line when it mattered most. And burpees have come to change that. And I think I could probably talk for hours about how that has happened. I'm not sure specifically how we can address it. Maybe if you have any thoughts, but yeah, that's kind of the baseline for where I'm at today.
Thank you for sharing, Alex. 3 really powerful vignettes there. And I guess one place for us to start would be, I'd love for you to try to pinpoint what it is about burpee training that has changed your self-relation. Is it that they've changed your physique in some significant way? Or is it something else? What is it that you think has reoriented you?
Yeah, I think purely in a superficial sense, it's done wonders for my physique. That's because of the simple fact that the burpees work. They're such an effective movement. And I think that the fact that the Busy Dad program lends itself to consistency and that we've been so consistent together since starting, I think that I've had a radical physical transformation. I've finally built up some mass in my legs, which I've never had before, ever. I've got a pretty good chest now. My pecs have really grown. My core, my abs are better than ever. Just generally speaking, like I'm looking so much fitter and healthier. And they've also led me, yeah.
Well, I
No,
thought
go on.
we could pause there for a little while, because I know a lot of people who are on the fence about whether to start burpee training. A lot of them are people who have struggled to really change their physique in the past. So, as you say, the fact that this program is just tailor-made to facilitate consistency, very important. It doesn't matter what you do. If you train hard consistently, you're going to get results, and this program will allow you to be consistent and get those results. Have you noticed, because I always think a big part of physical self-respect is posture. It's the way you carry yourself, publicly, shoulders back, core strong, a feeling of just physical readiness. Have you noticed any changes in your posture that you can connect to the burpee practice?
It's such a great point. I had bad posture for a really long time, and now I'm actually going to sit up even straighter. I had bad posture for a really long time, and my girlfriend would point it out. I had, a bit of like the nerd neck sort of phenotype. And then when we took videos originally and we saw that really bad form, I think the worst part of the form was that people listening not on YouTube won't be able to see, but in the press up position, my neck was totally pressed forward like that. And, I told you with such pride, oh, my nose touches the ground with each rep, but actually that was a negative thing. So through training the form and realizing you've got to pull back and get your shoulders back and get your chest touching the ground, that is carried over into everyday life. And I find myself up, and it's completely changed the way I look.
Yeah.
I'm taller, carry myself with more confidence, more pride. So I'm glad that you brought that up, actually. It's a game changer.
I think good burpee form encourages good posture. Good posture encourages self-respect. Self-respect then feeds back and encourages good posture. And this is a wonderful, wonderful part of the practice. I realized recently, I checked in with myself. I check in with myself physically throughout the day. I realized that there is no time of day when my abs aren't tensed. I realized that my core is hard. Like every second of the day, you could punch me in the stomach and get the same result. I realized with this when I was running, just this sense of like what I used to struggle with in core activation is now just my default way of living. And when you walk through the world with that kind of physical assurance, that is beyond any kind of inches of muscle that you might have added to certain body parts. That reorientation in your bearing is so valuable. So I just wanted to pause to settle on
Mm, yeah.
that.
I think to add to what we're talking about, you know, you mentioned earlier how burpees have allowed me to build other practices in my life as well, one of which being nutrition. I I think in order to develop a good nutritional baseline, you actually have to have a good training baseline first. I think that's at least been my experience of it. I think if you're not training regularly, you're not going to have that motivation, that need to eat well,
Mm,
and that gnawing feeling in the back of your mind, like you shouldn't be eating this because your training takes
mm,
precedence and you're doing
mm,
this for your training and whatnot.
mm,
Um, and so once we established, a situation where me doing my burpees was a non-negotiable, it then became possible to explore the nutrition and get that up to scratch.
mm,
And obviously, with that, further physical and mental gains came.
mm,
Um, so that's been a positive aspect as well.
mm. Yeah, absolutely. And tying into this theme of self-respect, um, if you approach your nutrition correctly, you will get to a point where, as you say, it's a need to eat well. Your body will reject food that you put into it that is crap. And there's this sense of this isn't worthy of me. This is beneath me. I have respect for
Mm-hmm,
myself. How could I sort of
mm-hmm,
tarnish myself with this kind of food? And it seems
mm-hmm,
like you've been able to cultivate that mindset.
mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, it starts to really pepper itself into every aspect of your life. And you slowly start realizing that with time as it moves on and on. And it's a wonderful feeling actually.
Mm,
And you
yeah,
start to carry yourself with pride in everything that you do.
absolutely, absolutely. So there is that fundamental shift in your just the energy you exude when you start building these practices. I've seen it in you. I've seen an urge towards that. I wonder if um I wonder if another element of that is the work ethic we've built. Like I said to you recently, and it seemed to really hit you. If I if I wanted to send you off to the gym with your gym bro buddies and start pumping up your biceps, you'd outperform every single one of those guys in the gym because you know what physical work is. I was at a gym recently and I was just overwhelmed by how much wasted time and energy there was. What a
Mm,
lethargic environment it was.
mm, mm.
Um, do you think just the fact that you're walking around the world knowing that you know what it is to endure through pain and adversity in ways that other people don't, do you think that informs the
Yeah,
self-respect you've been able to build?
you sort of asked me exactly what I was about to come to. Um, I think for those listening who are already training, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about. And you'll never quite know it until you do a busy dad burpee session. But if we take my case, if I struggle through 250 perfect 6 count burpees, like it's war, it's warfare.
Mm,
The analogy I've always used is the first 10 minutes of the workout are walking down the steps to hell, and the second 10 minutes are the long, hard climb back out of there because it is crazy what it puts you through mentally, psychologically, physically. And so, if you are doing that on a regular basis and getting through that, I mean, the sense of empowerment that gives you, it can't be compared to anything else, really. It's like nothing I've ever done or experienced before. Um, I was a climber for, as I said, and you got a certain sense of satisfaction from completing a hard climb that you'd been working on for a bit of time. But it's nothing like a personal best
mm,
on the Busy Dad program. And so coming back to self-respect, I mean, if you can put yourself through experiences like that, every week in, week out, and fight through them and persevere and grit your teeth and bite on your mouth guard, you are inevitably going to respect yourself. And I mean, coming back to my stories from before where I felt a sense of physical inferiority, that is gone now, because I know that I've put myself through tough times time and time again and come out the other side and succeeded.
It is a priceless knowledge. And if you talk to any practitioner, he or she is never more than a day or two away from the most recent pain fest, and never more than 1 or 2 days away from the next one. That self-respect you're describing, it only comes about, you only sustain it through regularly going back to that place.
Correct.
And that, I think, is a big part of it. There's nothing static about what we're doing. We're never resting on our laurels. We are continually exposing ourselves to adversity in every single session. So between sessions, the person you're encountering is someone who has a very fresh memory of pain and an anticipation of pain coming up very close. And you have the sense when you're talking to someone like that, that this is someone in the midst of a very demanding and very admirable undertaking.
But at the same time, there's such beauty in it, in that we keep our cards close to our chests, and like, we don't advertise I'm a burpee practitioner and let the whole world know. It's like a knowledge that we keep deep inside. And sometimes, I'll admit, I feel a little bit smug because I do think it's quite cool. And I've also taken a bit of pleasure in thinking that I've got a bit of a sleeper build now, where I don't look particularly eye-catching with clothes on, but when the shirt comes off, it's pretty damn good.
I love that build, man. It's the best. It's the best. No, there's that quiet. Go on.
Sorry, like in episode 1, where you talked about training naked. It's important to take pride in that as well, and it's not vanity.
No,
but you should be proud of what you're achieving, and as long as that, as you say, doesn't lead to complacency.
Yeah, no, the physique is a manifestation of your power to exert change in the world, and it's a testament to, you know, every battle that you've been through. So I agree with you. It's a proper object of pride. This pride is very dangerous. It can morph into a kind of idolatry and vanity, which is then very corrosive. But if we keep it within its proper confines, it's appropriate. And I think you've earned the right to feel that. Well, Alex, I often say this to you: if I was even half the man you are at your age, I have no idea what I would be today. You are on an incredible trajectory. It's so inspiring. A lot of the people who engage with what we're doing here are, you know, my sort of age group or older. It's so inspiring to see what a younger person can do on this program. When I rerun my 20s, they're blighted with wasted time and kind of squandered energy. It's really inspiring to see you not wasting your time or squandering your energy.
That's really kind, and coming from you, it means the world. I look up to you a lot, so thank you. I'm trying my best. I've got people who depend on me. As I've mentioned before, I want to be a good doctor for my patients. I want to be a good man for my family now and one day in the future. I do think that this burpee journey is equipping me to do that better and better each day. And I think if I can leave with a final message, coming back to self-respect once more, and just the Busy Dad program in general, whenever you give your trademark introduction to the channel, you say, all you need is just 80 minutes per week, and it's as simple as that. And I'd like to echo that sentiment. It is as simple as that, and it can be achieved. But I also want to make it be known that those 80 minutes are going to be some of the hardest 80 minutes of your week and of your life. But if you can pledge to do that, if you can put in that energy, you will see yourself in a way that you've never seen yourself before. I fully believe that.
So powerful, Alex. Thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing that message. It has a real credibility coming from you, because you live it, and that's clear to anyone listening, I think. So wonderful to have you back on the podcast. Let's begin our painful ascent from level 3 to level 4 and get you back on here when you're wearing that brown t-shirt.
Yes, please. And I'm sure we'll have lots more to chat about then. We could go on for hours.
We certainly could. Well, thank you, my friend. And to those of you listening, if you derived value from this podcast, keep tuning back in, because we've got several more wonderful conversations coming your way in the coming weeks. Alex, thank you again.
Thank you.